P. Stanley. I'm the director of Theatre Du Jour. This is Martha and Sean, and that's Dan back there. And this is Chris. We are the components of Theatre Du Jour. We're going to show you today our training. We have, over the next 2 days, we're going to show two different things about what we do. One is what we train, and the other is the result of that training, or why we train. Which is a good question. And this is a question you end up with a lot, especially in the United States. Why train? What is training? What's that all about? Is it an acting class or something? Smiths who cared about this stuff. And then after that, Etienne, the crew, and Marlene, these people continued this very pedantic research into the physicality, the corporal consciousness of the actor. Because you have to remember that for so long, acting was, especially in the Western world, was centered around lead players. People who got money and got people around them, and they went on stage. These big names who were probably talented people and gained a lot of recognition. People enjoyed it. And the other actors were just sort of there as decoration. They would tell them where to go. They were a director, an actor, a producer, and everything. That's why the families ran the things. And it's this that Stanislavski doesn't enjoy so much. And he doesn't enjoy what he sees on the stage. The problem with what he doesn't see is his lack of life. He sees people going and repeating things. Huge problem with the Russian stage. And still today, the American stage. So he started out to find a way to work, how to work. And he discovered very quickly it wasn't so much a matter of how do we work, but it's how do we learn from our work. And this is still the problem. So in all of these things, Stanislavski, Grotowski, Marlene, the crew, none of these guys were about starting a way that you could create a recipe. If you do this, this, and this, then you will be a great actor. Lee Strasberg thought that. He said, you go to the actor's school, and they'll tell you this, this, and this, and this, and that. They'll accuse you at the end of the day for not being a good actor. But it's just their want. We don't really train that. So, in the modern times now, for us, we're a direct descendant of that work, in that I take my work directly from Marlene, who's now deceased. He ran the Institute for Scenic Art, which started in Sweden in 1972, after he was Etienne de Cruz's assistant for 12 years, where he took the corporal mind and merged it with the performance aspects of what he knew from Stanislavski and Grotowski. He was one of the founders of the International School of Theater Anthropology with Grotowski and Eugenia Barlow. Something else is still continuing. For us, theater is a very concrete activity. It's not something that exists in the ephemeral world, something that we believe that we have enough inspiration, we can run up on the stage and grab it, and it will be ours. Because in the theater, we have to do this every day, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Whether you have indigestion or nausea or a cold, or your parents are in the hospital, or you've got a baby at home, or whatever, you got to go up there and you got to do it. How can I do that? How can I, without carrying all those troubles and be on the stage and be totally alive without thinking of these other things? Well, one could say, well, you need it to do it. This is a great thought, but you have to find a process whereby, how do I do these things? And this is something you have to constantly ask yourself as an actor. Oh, I want to do this. Well, how do I do that? I want to be a millionaire. Well, how are you going to do that? You sit on your ass and buy lottery tickets. That's one way. You buy a bunch of houses and resell them and rent that one out. And then now you're on the path to being a millionaire. You want to be alive on stage? You can't sit around the house looking at TV and old movies thinking, I'll act like that. It's not a process. A process is something you meet every day, at least with some regularity. Just like you're going to meet the play every day, or with some regularity. And your process should outweigh the time that you spend on the actual stage, probably about a half to 3 times. You can always tell the ones who don't. I always make the analogy of it to musicians who don't practice their scales and stuff in between playing with the band. You don't want this musician in your band. He only plays when he comes to play with the band. Well, that means he's no better than he was the last time he played with the band. And if he hasn't been practicing, he's not going to do it at all. You want somebody who does their finger scale, somebody who does, practices with their armature and changes their mouth shape to play the horn. You want somebody who's working on this stuff all the time, so that when they meet the band, when you meet the music, and the collaboration between everybody, this person is prepared. And This is what my mentor would call, Ingmar would call, we'll just not call him Ingmar, I won't call him my mentor anymore. You know who that is, Ingmar Lind. That's what Ingmar would say, preparing for the unknown. So that even in a play that you've rehearsed, you've done it over and over and over, still that moment of you in front of the audience is an unknown moment. So, athletic game or something. We know the structure, we know that's going to go. We don't know who's going to win, or so we think. And in the play, we don't know if we're going to believe or buy this play at all. We just really suck. So we're trying to get away from the suck. How do you do that? Well, in our work, we maintain that there is a principle of alternation, which is one of the basic principles of life. People in general don't set a course and move along that course and then do only the things that are along that course. If they are going to make a cup of tea from sitting in the living room and going to the kitchen, it's highly unlikely that they're going to stand up, walk over to the kitchen, get the pot out, get the tea bags, make the tea, finish this action, and go back and sit down. It's so much more likely that they're going to forget something. They're going to hear something on the television they like. The cat is going to run under their legs. The phone is going to ring. Something's going to go by. You know, any number of things is going to happen between this and this. And it's the interruption of that path of this normal life. This we call being on our way somewhere. I'm on my way to make tea. But I'm going to be stopped by the telephone. Or I don't have any tea because we're going to have coffee. You know, or I get there, my kettle's broke, But I'm still on my way to tea. But I have interruptions. This is where the alternation comes in. I'm on my way. And you do it all the time. Should I do it? I don't know. You're by yourself. It's not like you're trying to demonstrate anything. But you don't know if I'm going to have the sleepy time tea, Lipton tea, screw Lipton tea, tea. Now if we go back to our seat. It's a very simple way to talk about alternation. All the things that are going to change in there are going to be things like the direction that I'm going, the dynamic that I'm engaging in, the rhythm that I'm moving in. These are the sense of my action. If I'm frantically going to get tea, maybe it's a special herb tea because my heart is sort of palpitating. I'm going to run off to get this tea. That becomes the signification of the action. The rhythm, the dynamic, the tension of my action is the sense of my action. As we create theater, it's important for us to separate these two things, the sense of the action and the signification of the action. We all too often work backwards from the signification. We say, I want to do a scene about the guy with his heart palpitating going to get herb tea. So immediately get it. And this becomes a whole bit about this, and we have never really examined going and getting tea. Or even better yet, just walking or reaching. And it's those elements that we can treat. We can break them down to the point where we can say, okay, here's the beginning. This is the walk. Now, your mother didn't teach you to walk to get a tea, or he or she, or how you would like to walk. They didn't teach you to go walk to this demonstration today, or to walk to war. Those are things you learn and change later. So in the same way, the actor has to go back to the basics of the things that they know. Walking, sitting, turning. These are what we call physical actions. They're not gestures, they're actions. Gesture can be halfway through there. That's a gesture. Sorry. Not that. That's a gesture. But an action has a follow-through. As a result. If I'm walking or going somewhere, I'm on my way. Okay. So in order to do this, through the years, the great masters have come up with a series of exercises. So these exercises, some of them were started out by Stanislavski, but this stuff early on was a lot more talky. You see pictures of people doing work with Stanislavski, they're all like in coats and ties. Working out, aren't you? Because later on the uniform becomes leotards and black shirts. Thank God we lived through that. Now today we have our du jour wear with this gray and black and a little bit of stripe. So Stanislavski began to come up with what he called the theater of physical action at the end of his life. And as Grotowski took that work and started to make his work out of it, he brought in the actors and said, we need a series of things that don't mean anything to work on, so that we can discover these things, these qualities of movement and action. So everybody went on, they came out with a bunch of stuff. Some people brought in yoga exercises, some people brought in gymnastic exercises, and some of it was just for crap. Couldn't do anything with it. So over the, 45 to 50 years since this has all started, it's sort of been honed down to about 18 exercises that have been passed on and that we continue to pass on to people we work with. We're going to pass it on to you today, probably. Some of them. When we take these exercises, which have no signification whatsoever, we can now find something out of context totally to work with. This will be more evident tomorrow when we talk about personal material, which will be the actual things we would do in a play, as opposed to these actions, which are just, like I say, abstract, physical gymnastics. They truly are just exercises. If you see somebody doing it, well, which you will in a few minutes, although not like this, but actually treating it the way we get to work on it after we've been doing it about 5 or 10 years, it looks like they're doing some little scene. It looks like they're really working on something because they're on their way, they have an intention, they're alternating, they're changing around, and you begin to see a sense of life there. Oh, this person's not just repeating this by rote, there's something going on. Now this is our first obstacle in the theater, is to get that person in the seat to go that far with us. After that, we can do a lot of things. But before anything can be political, before it can be funny, before it can be good or bad, it has to be. And this is the crux of your problem. You as an actor have to be on the stage. There's nothing to do with my name. So, let me show you a few of these exercises. Martha. Why don't we, I'm going to show you what you do. Let's start with the jump. Very simple exercise. All she's really doing is changing direction when she jumps around. All right. We're going on the knees to that side of us. And then you can see the lean back. Upside down, the right side, that's another exercise. And then continue to move forward and roll on. And that all fits together as one little exercise. So you all get that going on the legs, going down the knees again, all the way up through standing up using this thing.
Standing up using what?
Using this one.
Oh.
Just signature. This is what we call a phrase. Phrase of exercises. Precision of the exercise is very important because even though it's seemingly just jumping, there's more to the jump. Because it's not just like that. There's components to it. So in this case, we're looking for the feet to come up, not necessarily for me to come up, or the actor doing it, and then to come back to the ground with some control, quietness. Because so many people end up with this, you know, 1, 2, 3, so that you can be in control. There are more complicated exercises. Chris, you want to share your favorite?
Yes.
Yes, she's just going to do this.
Except for I don't like the last one. But.
an exercise for every little part of this. So even when you're getting up off the ground, there's a particular thing, like this little thing where you just saw the knee go up, the hand go up, the rolling back up from being on the knees, getting down to the floor. There are ways to do it so that it's not just arbitrary. Sean, why don't you show the little punk do wall? This is just a wall, right? No, it's not quite just a wall. There's a lot of things she has to do. She has to keep her spine straight. She has to keep her hips tucked up underneath herself. She has to lift the knee. The knee is the main thing making the circle. And she has to keep the feet flat if they're hitting the floor all at one time. Okay? It's not this. It's actually this. And then in some cases, it's this, depending on how big an exercise you want to make of it. When you have all of these exercises, you try to link them together so that you're not just arbitrarily out here picking up one exercise and doing the other. You create what we call a working curve. And this curve starts with usually me saying, okay, I want you to get on the floor, do your work today. And then you have a task. The simple task would be direction. I want you to alternate your direction. Sounds easy enough. Person goes out on the floor, they begin this series of exercises. Their objective is going to be probably to do as many exercises as they know, so they have variation in their life. 2, to do them as precisely as they can. 3, not to allow any pause in between the exercises, which is especially difficult when you first learn them because you have to remember the exercise. So part of your objective is to ingrain these exercises in yourself physically so that you can put them in a rapid succession without having to think about it. Once those things are present, you can do the thing, what we call surprising yourself. Actions will come up that you don't plan. When you first do the training, it's all you can do to get through 15 minutes of this stuff. Because it's when you see people all bandaged up, you know.
And then you won't be able to walk in then.
You'll find out soon why you're all bandaged up. Because the body is not quite ready for all this stuff. Moreover, it takes a certain amount of physical attention. Things like balance are important. We have several sections to our working curve, but early on, we do a lot of standing on one foot. It seems sort of arbitrary, and just hanging around like this, but it's important later on when you're trying to do another exercise that has a bunch of different things to it. If you get somebody who can't stand on one leg for a while, then you're not going to get very far with it. And as things get more complicated, you discover the distribution of weight is going to hinder you from being able to do certain things. Instead of stepping totally forward, you find out that you're trying to extend by opening your hips all the time. So you're not keeping your hips in the same direction of movement. Little things like this that you'll discover through the exercises. And through the exercises can train. You can train elements that are going to be present on stage, but are not being, they don't signify the things that are on stage. Obviously, if we go out onto the stage with a scene between man and woman with some lover spat and some text, we've got to get over all of that. That's the biggest obstacle we've got, is all the things we've chosen, because immediately everything comes to mind, right? Oh, it's man and woman, heterosexual relationship. Oh, they're fighting, and so on. But in this, we can combine the essences of what's part of that scene, build it up so that when my actors meet that scene, we can deconstruct it and say, oh, okay, what's the dynamic of this meeting? Let's take away all the other stuff. Just what's the dynamic, what's the energy, what's the exchange, what's going to be the rhythm of this scene. And this we can play with a long time before we ever bring in any text. When we created our last play, we didn't allow the actors to use any of the text. We had the text, but we could only use 1 or 2 words of it. And the scenes were done completely physically, off of the essence of the scene. So consequently, if there was a huge fight between, this was a play called Poor Oedipus, which is, you can tell what that is, right? If there was a scene between Creon and Oedipus, which was an argument we didn't go straight to the argument text. That would have been, in my way of thinking, the way to really execute the scene. We went first to the dynamic what we do, frantic dynamic or something. We didn't even go to the dynamic of anger. We went to something else. We went to tension. Let's try tension. Let's try speed. Let's try these things. And then we begin to find movement, bring it into our training. And then finally, when you did have the text became more of a soundtrack for what was really happening. Because something was true, but something was happening. They weren't really fighting. They weren't really epics of Creon. But they were two people alive on stage doing something. And we could all perceive that. So enough of that long pattern. Let's watch these guys throw themselves around a little bit so you can see how this looks all together. So I want everybody to go there, all four of you. Now, these guys are all at different levels of their ability in these exercises. And even as they grow and continue to work, people have difficulties with certain things. This one can't stand on the shoulder, and this one can't do a backward flip, and so on and so on. This is not so important in the end as going through the processes that make up the exercises. You'll see sometimes, after you watch a little bit, you see, oh, that's an exercise. I recognize an exercise now. And then you see somebody else doing it. They kind of like have to do it. You know, what's up with that, right? Or they're way too high, or something else is wrong with it. The important thing is to meet the balance or to meet the obstacle of that exercise and not to achieve the exercise. One of the worst people I can ever train is somebody who's so physically adept they can do everything I tell them to do. They can do all the rolls, they can do all the jumps, everything, and they never go through any process. They never meet the difficulty. I have to make up other stuff with them. I make up exercises on the cuff. Oh yeah, do that with your foot tied in the chair. And now we got something to work on. All right, so without doing too much treatment of the exercises, just try to do the exercises in their cleanest sense. Continue. Should look like we did this morning, really. Just want to flow now. Do not stop with these exercises. Have the flow and change the direction. That's all we need. Okay, ready? And begin. okay, you stop. So, well, you can't watch too much of that for too long now, can you? Actually, I do watch a lot of that. That's the progress of the exercises on the simplest level. And that's not even all the exercises. And once you have these exercises, and once you know them, now we can begin to treat them, as we said. And this is where this direction, dynamic, rhythm, inner tension, all these things, and SOTS, one of our favorite things, comes into play. SOTS, by the way, is a Norwegian word, which we don't really have an equivalent for it, so we all still say SOTS. Since so few people talk about this in America, it doesn't really matter. But it basically is this moment of wind up before release into something, this moment of stop. We were talking yesterday, it's like a swing set when it gets to that, to the top of the swing, or as you're swinging, you get to the top of the arc. There's like a little pause there before you begin to come back down. And it's that holding of release. So it's what the Asians would call active stillness. Obviously, the person with the swing is not just like stopped there. Momentum has not stopped. There is still momentum. There is still movement in that one moment of stopping up in that moment of the swing set, but it's just the release of coming back down. This is called SOTS. And then so when you have those elements introduced into the scene, now we have a new problem. We've got to change where these are. So the first way we'll do that is limit the number of exercises we're going to work on. So we'll say, let's choose out of all of our basket of things that we can work on, let's choose 4 exercises. And the person will choose 4 that they can work on with some ease. So Martha goes over 4. She does go over 4. And she chooses 4 exercises. All right, so this is a phrase now. Go ahead and make that again. As you see, Martha's been doing this for many years, and she likes to cheat a little bit on me. And ask me to do it just cleanly, So, now we're going to start working on speed.
See, upstaging.
Surprising great. That's all right, she's on the floor.
No. Scared of you?
I'm going to show you how to upstage without being on stage. So now we're going to start to treat this. Let's start treating it with direction. So you ambulate yourself around the space and change direction with great rapidity. Let's not go too far on time. Change the direction and let's change the speed. You're alternating the speed and direction. Those are exercises. Ready? And go. begin to see that the actor has to be concerned now with variations and on a very gradient level. It's not just fast or slow. There are increments of fast and slow. These increments, the fast and slow, and almost everything you can imagine, is the result of tension, inner tension. And my Swedish friends mistakenly always call this intention. This is a source of great confusion in the world for the English speakers, because they always start talking about intention. You know, let's talk about the intention, and all the actors think they're talking about what you mean to do. And in fact, they mean the inner tension within you. There are intrinsic into these exercises a lot of tensions, a lot of directions. One of the elements we find very quickly is that all forward motion relies on backward tension. So, for example, this whole thing of going down to the knee, well, this all looks very fine and good and easy. Those of you who are going to try this will find out just how painful it can be. The reason this can be done is because of the tension backwards. So here, from immediately, you find the tension of the body, the direction of the body's back. We're all focused this way. All of my energy goes back this way. I'm not here. Here, I'm going to crash on my knees. But here, I'm pulling away. And it gives me the ability to choose when those knees are going to come out and continue this exercise. Same thing for many with this exercise. This tension is back over here to get this, to keep yourself upright. So, as the actor has learned the exercises, now they can deal with the speed and the direction. We're going to focus on the flow of the action. And the flow of the action and the sots. So, yeah. Sean's our newest addition here. So, we get to utilize it a little bit. Go ahead and take 4. Repeat it a couple of times. Now, just so you know, show them each exercise individually, that they can see the difference between the 4. That's one exercise. That's another one. That's another one. That one is sort of what we call a transition exercise. Things like when they roll over, they put the arm up and they roll over. These are what we call transitional exercises. By themselves, they're very difficult to do because you just be rolling around and standing up. But they're the things that create the links so that you can do only the exercises and not have to rely on some other thing to get up. This is what breaks the flow. Let's try a little socks here. You what should I call it, or can you do it?
Let's see.
Can you try this?
I'll see.
All right, so Sean now is going to do the exercises without stopping in between them, without trying to create a flow of action. She's going to stop, hold her action, and then release into the continued flow of action. When you're ready. sit right here, you have four people start working right here. They all end up double doing it. Okay, so let's try this again. And now I want you to alternate tensions.
Same form.
Same form. Don't worry about the sauce. Alternate tensions. Okay. So now we start seeing a lot of variations on these exercises. It's tension, we have the sots, tension begins to create a rhythm that we can identify. And this, of course, gets to be my job. It's a great job that I have observing all this stuff. And so now it's all there's a tension, there's a rhythm. So once we have the actors this far, we're going to bring in the relationship of the sots and the explosion of energy of activity. Always one of my favorite things to watch. Dan and Chris. It's some of the hardest stuff to do. So take four exercises with your jig, try to take the same ones you've got.
Catwalk.
Travel, this little thing here, rolling over one time. She did a backward roll.
Oh, and then there's the transition.
Yeah, and standing up.
Okay.
It doesn't be exactly what you were, but it was a pretty good place. Similar. So go ahead and find those for yourself. Don't worry about the task yet. All right, so now what I want you to do is to integrate the sots and the explosion into this.
Okay, I gotta bring my paper.
Yeah, you can do that. Ready? And begin. stuff. All these obstacles to the work. the actors get ready to go on the floor in a working situation, it goes very much like this. I'll walk up to them and say, okay, once you start your training now, I want you to focus on the direction that you're going in. Be on your way. I don't want you to repeat any exercise more than twice in succession. Integrate SOTs and explosion into your work. And then try to be aware of the other's presence. This is quite a little laundry list of things to walk up on the floor with. It requires a lot of knowledge of those exercises in order to do all those things. Otherwise, you're standing there, what do you say? And now we have an uninvited SOTs into our work. And that's going to be the biggest obstacle. How do I keep myself from thinking about this crap? How do I keep myself from observing, oh man, I suck today. Chris. He'll be calling me later at the bar. God, I can't believe I picked out that exercise. Screw that. She won't use such formal language, but resident rock and roll girl. So all put together, it looks sort of like what you saw in the very beginning. But now Martha will show you all of these things together. What the hell is all that good for? I mean, you can go flip around on the stage and you can hear, and believe me, I've had that conversation. This is all fine and good, Stanley, but I don't see it. Who cares? I don't want to be an acrobat. I had one person tell me in Norway, I didn't come here to train to be an acrobat. So you're not going to be an acrobat. The things that we're talking about are things that are later going to come up in what we call personal material, things we actually choose. So now when we start on the floor to bring up a scene, say I have a scene between Dan and Martha, and he goes and sits down and brings out a gun and then puts it to her head, and she laughs at him and runs away. Okay, that's our scene. Well, that becomes to us a phrase of action, first and foremost. Not the whole connotation of Dan having a gun on Martha's head and her running. That's next. We'll decide if that's a funny scene later on. We'll decide if it's a sad scene later on. Or actually, the playwright will probably tell us. But at the outset, we can take that action and what I call exercise eyes. Everything from her walking into the room and sitting down, and pulling out the gun, putting it to her head, her looking at him, standing up, and running away. Those become the elements of that scene. And we will treat just like you saw them treat these things. So in our daily working curve, what happens is we begin to work like this on these exercises. And then after about 30 minutes or so of that, you begin to switch over to what we call material, which would be taking out the gun, for example, would be a piece of material, or just reaching in and pulling something out. We wouldn't even have it properly in the beginning. And here we're going to work on it here. It's going to change its direction. It's going to change its space. It's going to change its tension. And this will begin to color our scene for us. Then in this way, this is what I call uncovering the scene. For me, in creating plays, I'm much more interested in the archaeology, if you will, of the sense of what's happening than I am trying to convey to you what I impose upon the actors. You gotta have a lot of faith in your actors. So to that end, we're going to destroy all that stuff. We're going to try to make that stuff what it's not. We're going to try to turn it into the Bolshoi ballet. We're going to try to make it into a tequila party. We're going to do everything we can to that thing to find out what it isn't, and then begin to pick the things that we really want and crystallize those things. So in the daily work of the actor, they're able to deconstruct it before they meet it every day, even before we do a play usually. We have a chance to do a very short working group. But that is something to develop further. Now, we'll let those of you who want to try this come on up and learn some exercises.
Yes, there's someone out here to shake it out. We'll take you through the whole process of ego. Do that takes another half an hour. I'm going to do that right now. What's that? Okay. Guide the string through your fists, not through your shoulders. Up, 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 and turn. Stay in the air long. Up, good. Up, good.
Together.
Sorry?
Legs together.
Yes, legs together. Absolutely. That's you. Is this going forward? You want the whole spine to ah. Okay. Pick up your spine. We'll look down your chest. Let your head relax. Looking forward. Again. Just go back. Let me come back up. Let your head go. Try to paint an arch with all of your spine so that your head is flat over. Okay, relax. Good. Okay, try again. All right, the second part of that is the forward roll that goes with the effect here. Keep your spine arched. This is what I'm talking about your head now. And keep it to the side. So when we often teach this in a large The main thing is to keep a great big arch on your back. Keep your head turned. Go back, and just kind of come on over. Try it. Yeah, from standing. So go down to the knees, do 2 backward arches, and then roll forward. Don't lose those which are just kind of okay, so if you land like this, the back arch total opposite way. Now you do this comparison left side to right. You just pull your feet right now. There you go. Do a blue roundhouse on the other side. Go back up. Okay. All that together. All that together. So here we go. On your knees. Push 1. Push 2. And then come on over. Up. All through. Knees to the side. Up. And up. Okay. All right. One more thing. Good. And that's this. Pretty simple, huh? It's just knee around and foot coming flat on the ground. Very good. And then you change direction. Again, with the hips, you change with your chest. All right, so now we have a little phrase, don't we? We have a jump. We have the going onto our knees, lean back, rolling forward, pulling through, sliding on our knees, doing a little shoulder tap, and standing back up again. Oh, here we go. Let's do all that together, please. Up, jump. Go to our knees, down, back, and forward. Up, pull through, around the side, and then on the knee, up, and a little. Now change direction. All right. Now that you've gotten that far, you guys can join in now. That's the only other stuff I want you guys to do. And so you can reference these 3 if you get lost. And also to see if you're doing it right or not. So it's fine to look around and see what's going on. Let's repeat this phrase 4 times. Okay? 4 times. And be aware, try not to run into anybody. You can use this jumping and turning and this walking to emulate the other parts of the room. Those 2 things can be repeated more often than just once. Especially if you're trying to break this like look at my face. So let's try this. Remember that you want these things to go in a flow. You don't want to be stopping in between. And as I say, it's hard to try to remember. But keep your eye on your partner that reminds you what's going on. And remember to turn your head. Okay, ready? And begin. you, I want you to choose a place in the room and use these exercises to take you there. So this is the direction work. The door, the window, wherever, back here. Be on your way to that place with these exercises. And then when I cry out, change, I want you to change the direction you're going. Or at least choose another direction. Obviously, going on your back. You're not going to change right now. It means the very next moment you get up, you go a different way. Okay? Again. Change. 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 All right, good. We're going to continue, so don't stop anywhere there. Now we're going to play with the stops. So when I yell stop, stop where you are, hold your energy, stay on the through line, continue this whole plan of being on your way somewhere. But I'm not going to change you now. You change your own direction. But always have a direction that you're going in. Always be on your way to some place in this room. And as I yell out to stop, stop exactly where you are, try to hold the position that you're in, and then gather all the energy that's within you until I say go. And then when I say go, continue that line, but explode into that line. Everybody clear on that? Okay, begin. Stop. Hold it. Hold it. Gather the energy. Go. Let the explosion dissipate too. Those don't explode in one action. Let that explosion carry you further. And stop. And hold it. Tight. Pull it tight. Tight. And release it. Go. Stop. Hold it tight. And go. Stop. Go. Beware of your direction before you're going.
go back.
Dan got off easy on that one.
Yeah, how many years have I been doing this?
Video man.
Yeah. Oh, but I have done this with the camera, you know.
Just joshing with
Oh man, I'd be dead right now.
I was dead out there. You see me? I was hurting.
That's what we call holding on to the snakes.
The funniest thing is like, I notice is people reaching for a moment.
Yeah, observations from people who are participating. What do you think? How is it to be inside of it?
I struggle with that. I mean, maybe it's strong now. I'm constantly going, oh, I can strong do that. That's my struggle right now. It's a, I should fit this. Well, yeah, and that's my person.
Yeah, it's an issue. Because people who are strong do want to use their strength to get through the exercise. And what you find out very quickly is it's more about balance and weight distribution and how I can lever myself physically rather than push myself through this. Because imagine about 35 or 40 minutes of that. And then your legs are like noodles. So that's always one of the first issues. What else is going on?
It's really awesome here, like I'm not very strong, I don't know. But then you realize that it really does flow. And keeping the flow going is what started to focus. And then I had to fight with the issue like split out like rest here.
You can justify that, it's called socks.
Yeah.
I recommend the resting sauce.
Well, going somewhere.
Just
Like, really,
yeah, going to sleep is not a sauce.
you know, it's handy to see people beforehand, that are dealing with tiredness, to not be in perfect shape. You know, to land off and have to catch your balance, but to continue the gestures, you know, our obstacle words. Another one of your words. To just get through, to continue the mind.
Right. Because what is always the temptation is to stop and observe yourself. Oh man, and this totally blows everything. As you can see, as you can well imagine, if everybody was stopping every time they made a mistake, we would not have a flow. We could not work on sauce. We could not work.
The point is that to be good at the exercise.
So with the freedom of the, you know, our language is, you must keep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
How
you
you
can,
work.
because for yourself, you can cross boundaries in your work. You have to do that. You have to find ways to make yourself vulnerable. You will, I mean, what you have to do is learn the exercises and you will get good at it. And then when you,
Well, one of the things that Bee's always talking about is using the exercises and not being used by them. And like the elements that he was talking about like earlier, like direction, attention, and all that, is like we set ourselves tasks on the floor. Like we'll say, okay, I'm going to work on, well, like me and Sean have been specifically working on our direction, our speed, and our sauce. So, and alternating those rapidly. So if you keep on task, then you really are using the exercise as opposed to, like right now, being beaten up by them. You know?
Yeah, one of the dangers, I would say, of any kind of process where we work is that people get the idea that we're working on you as an actor. We're trying to get you to be strong. We're trying to get you to be limber. And that's one part of our work, indeed. But moreover, we're trying to get you to be able to manipulate these elements. And you need a certain amount of prowess in order to do it. Like I say, you got to have a certain amount of balance, obviously, to get through some of this stuff. If you're going to have a sauce in the middle of this thing, balance is good. You need to have command of that. And those are other works that we do. We have other training exercises that are more focused on making sure our body is stretched, making sure that we have enough limberness in our legs and we have balance. And to this end, we use a lot of Kung Fu and Qigong as our basic exercises. The Kung Fu form we use exactly like you see here now. It doesn't look like that. It looks like, shouting tiger form. But we can manipulate it with sides, and we can manipulate it with tension, and we can manipulate it in direction. And that becomes the best element, because the same thing with the Kung Fu. You can learn to do the Kung Fu really well. Martha hates Kung Fu. Oh, on fire. We've never fought in our life. If we were to get into a fight, I'm sure we'd all be just pulverized like 8-year-old boys. What else? Anything else out there?
That's breath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you face specifically to something that you start training as something to pay attention to.
No, we take it specifically. That's the Qigong work. Qigong is a breathing exercise stuff. Asian, it looks like Tai Chi. And it is one of the first things, and we had days and days and hours and years to go about everything. We would talk a lot about breath and the origin of movement through breath. Ingmar talked a lot about that. He and I worked on this specifically for months, just trying to get an action to come from a breath, and to try to get the breath as an integral part of the thing. Qigong exercises, we learn to control our breathing so that our actions are in fullness with our breath. So for example, a Qigong exercise would be like lifting up your arms. This is a very simple example. Lifting up your arms and breathing in. So I finish my entire inhale while I complete this entire action. And then there's an exhale, which goes the same way. And then if you're working on like punching, like we'll work on kung fu punches, talk. And first you learn, because everybody got that in the out. With the exhale, that's where all the power is. Of course, false, but we'll get to that in a bit. But if I want to start suddenly going like this, I can't go. Or, so you have to get the breath working on its own. So I'll get my breath going. And so I can move much faster than my breath. And that is something we train on so that doesn't happen to us. We try to also getting used to the reverse of breathing. We work very much on trying to train ourselves not to actively breathe in, but to actively breathe out. What the hell does that mean? What we mean by that is to push all of the air from within your body, because this creates a vacuum. And now all you have to do is release the throat, or whatever you're using to hold back air. And air will come up into you. Air will get in your body. The trick is to control how much is going in, so that I don't just go like this. It's like coming up out of the water. And yeah, and when you're training, this becomes very important, to be able to let out enough air and keep yourself breathing at a regular pace, because you're going to get totally exhausted in there. What about the guys watching? Did you see what they were doing? Did you see the work we're talking about? Comments?
I'm a little bit confused about how you're using the term SOTS. Because my understanding of the rules that the SOTS is that moment, for example, they use the
Swing set.
but the energy is moving this way, that moment of pause before we change the direction. And when you're calling a stop, and they hold where they are and then continue in the same direction. I guess I'm confused.
It's the directional thing, right? It's not so much the directional as it is the release. So, yeah, the swing set, you can also use it like as an example to be a pitcher who's lining up for the pitch. I mean, and there's that moment before he decides to go ahead and let the body flow. He's not really changing the direction, but he's holding back within a line, within a through line of action.
But there's in order to throw the ball forward, he takes it back.
That's right, there's an
Yeah,
opposition.
SOTS.
Yeah,
Rather than forward.
that's exactly right. In our case, it's more of a drawing in. It's more of a, if we can talk like this, it's more of an energy reverse, if you will. Say, if you're moving on the through line, my socks. For me, the way I'm getting the socks is this. I'm not going like this to get it. But this is what I'm having. I'm having this tension backwards before I release back again, forward. So it's not to be da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. It is to have that draw. There's resistance. Yeah, almost. Well, if you think about it enough, that would be one also. Yeah, this is our problem too, as we try to talk about SOTS. Sean.
So I've heard that these calling stop, I would think for me, it's not that equals SOTS, but you have to begin somewhere to learn about it. And so that as a company, that's the way we begin to try as an actor, because it is the individual actor who has to discover SOTS. We can't teach it. We have to find it
what are you doing in that moment? In terms of like that energy? Is it anything up with the body, or
Well,
I guess that's what I'm not clear.
that's what he asks us to do. I think, again, that to me is a very sort of externally described and explained way, because I think that what you're talking about is internal energy. And again, I think you have to find that as a performer, but it doesn't do any good to just say, go up in a room somewhere and come back and you found it. It's a very sort of, it's like, to me, it is like the way we begin everything, these exercises we learn, X, Y, Z, and these are the things that you do, but then where that goes, where you take that, I don't know. It's just, it's sort of consequent for the rest of the way we work, is that B gives us very sort of simplistic things to work with, and then finding what that really is for is the actor's job. So to talk about thoughts in that way is very simplistic, and it probably isn't, in some ways, whatever way you discover or internalize thoughts, technically the way you work with is an actor. But you're talking to a group of people, so it's a very different.
Yes, but tension is exactly where I began this. I mean, for me, when I work, I take it exactly, we work very much everything from the hips, from the diaphragm, from this area, the chi area. We're all about the chi stuff, you know. So, if I'm working with an actor about thoughts, you know, he's, what is his motion, let's say, you know, his motion is picking up and down this chair. You know, here's my material, and there's my repeatable action. Very dumbass thing to choose, but anyway. And then I want to have a socks within this. I am going to start tightening my abdomen. I'm going to start tightening my feet. My hands are all tight. My shoulders, all of my muscles now are much more tense than they were when I was in the action. Now I'm going to further tighten them. And further tighten them. And then I'll release into what I'm doing. Now you can't, for you, understand it. The trick of it is to make that difference of it. And when I'm on the stage, and I go to here and I'm going to try to create a moment here. I say, all right, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to remember something when I pick up that chair. It's my scene, right? I remember my father sitting there. So I come over here, then I leave this thing.
See, his action changed after he stopped. What the rest of the, because it could have been just even bring it down, the stop was different. It was different. So that's the change of direction you're talking about, but it's internal change of direction, the dynamic, or whatever you want to call that, the action changed.
It's just a practice so that we have tools to recognize that our body has.
Give you choices. Give you a lot of choices. You get ready to say something.
I was just thinking, as you describe it, it starts to seem more like it's actually a state of suspension.
That's a really good way of
Stop
doing
and
Yeah.
just, I don't know, you get into some language, whatever.
No, it's exactly, it's a very good.
Something about that too.
It's exactly that. And even if you want to read about it, if you do want to read about this particular thing, you can read about it in Eugenio Barber's book, Paper Canoe. He writes a little section on socks. And Asian dancers use this much more. They have another word for it. But it is this just suspension, and that's much more the way they're talking about it, suspending action. Or the, what do they call it? The inactive action. So it's a tough thing to talk about.
So you're using it as a way to draw attention to a moment?
Maybe. That you can make a choice with later on. I mean, as she says, remember your name? As Lydia says, this is to give us choices. I mean, as I was talking to an actor friend of mine just the other day, she was like, well, what, what's all this about? Why would you train? And I said, well, so that you don't wind up walking on the outsides of your feet all the time, for example. She said, yeah, but that might be the character that I'm trying to do. I said, yeah, but not every character you play. This is the bottom line of it, giving the actor the tools to make these choices, so that he doesn't end up dead. Because how many times have you've been watching that play about the guy with the chair, and he comes up and he's like, well, what were you up to there? You just stop or something. But you have to have something else going on. There has to be some internal activity, in my opinion, to be engaging. And this is just something that you might make a choice. Obviously, our plays are not full of sauce. If you come see a Theatre Du Jour play, everybody's not going around one. But you might choose it one time along the way, or you do it very subtly. You go to somebody and you do it because Yeah, I recognize him, or something. You use them in very different levels. Everything that you do on the floor is much, much larger than you would ever do. As Ingmar would say, the application of the process is a parody of itself. You don't want to create a play that's full of just this kind of stuff, because then it looks like a parody. It looks like, Gilda Radner doing the chicken on the video, That goes far back for everybody, but who was Gilda Radner, they say? Other questions?
Here's another question that seemed to me that the word suspension carries. Do you remember Maya finished using the word weight reduction? That actually, you're never really stopping. You're just reducing the speed or the size of the action or the gesture. So it seems to be still, but there continues this continuing motion. It's almost imperceptible. And however you do that, whether it's with breath or with tense muscularity, it's simply a choice to make smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the size does imply change. You can reduce what you're doing, you're still getting the same path of action. It implies a change in action. Right, but what I'm saying first is you have to make a reduction of what you were doing, and then not necessarily. I don't think you necessarily have to make a reduction. The size.
Doesn't Eugenio say, like, outside, stop, inside, no stop?
Yeah, that's Asian.
Yeah, and like that. And also, I made recently a revelation about you really have to be on your way somewhere. You have to be really going in a direction, know where you're going for SOTs, to do SOTs or to use it. Because if you don't know where you're going, then where does the energy release?
We were working this morning, one of the things that came up was the pulse of energy. This is the great thing about working in this kind of theater. Always got something to talk about here. Yeah, it's our discovery today. But we're talking about pulse of action because there's a little walk that we use as an exercise that has a bit of a pulse to it. And after you do this for a while, you realize that, oh, gee, this little pulse is actually what's going on all the time. And it's this little pulse I'm trying to get into my body and to get used to this rhythm of something that really is already going on. I mean, you've got heartbeat, you've got respiratory. There is a rhythm. There is something happening within you. And if you can tap into it, as kind of like what we talk about with the Qigong, with a longer breath over many actions, it's sort of the same thing. We have a lot of little pulses that are making up longer actions, sort of like your heartbeat, making up a whole day for you. So, and we found out, very much like what you're saying, it's a flow of something that we're trying to impede. We're trying to impede it on many levels. We're trying to restrict it, and within its tension, we're trying to stop it with the SOT. We're trying to continue it with explosion. We're trying to reduce it. We do use reduction in our work too. Try to make a gesture or action very, very small, make them very, very, very large. Anything we can do to, as one of my colleagues would say, declare war on that thing, to take it to its nth, so that we understand, one, the thing and how it relates to us. And again, these are tools. These are just ways to manipulate this, because I would never want to see a play with all this stuff in it. But what I would like to see are actors who have control of those things. You can tell they're more seasoned actors. They might not talk about it the way we're talking about it. We're not evangelists. We're not here trying to tell you this is the way to create theater. This is our way to create theater. And I do believe that when you have a process or a path, the only way to really fulfill the path is to stay on it. If you keep getting on a different path, you're going to get where you're going. Well, unless they all do it the same way. But then, once the location is reached, the journey's forgotten, as they say. But in our case, we just continue to use these things and these vocabularies, and you'll find very similar stuff and so much other stuff, especially stuff that has the same roots, like the crew. Whenever I talk to somebody about mind, they say, "Oh yes, I love Marcel Marceau." Yeah, well, the corporal mind is a lot different than hand mind. These are different areas of the world and different areas of research, but some of the technology, the vocabulary, and the approach is all very, very similar. But you have to, in my mind, further refine what it is you're looking for, to find more and more and more in it. And that's what gives this, for us, it's a very wealth of information now, because we can talk about something that is very obtuse. We have a vocabulary let's take that thing you just talked about. Somebody, what we might take you, so let's talk about size. Well, we can talk about size. Let's go out here and we'll try it. And we have these exercises. See if we can do it. Or somebody else will say, well, it's reduction. Let's reduce it all. See what happens. Then, is it a good tool? Is it a usable tool? Is it bullshit? Can you, we make some choices. When I start directing the actors in the play, I won't be telling them all this stuff. You know, I'll say, all right, let's do this scene now, which is really for us a long coda or a score of actions. And then as a director, if I'm not liking where it's going, I know how to color it. And say, oh, let's do this. Let's change that tension of that. Let's use the sots in a different place. Let's try this over here. And it's a very clean way for us to work, rather than me trying to tell them how I feel about the scene. I just feel like you're not emoting. You know? We don't emote very much in theater. We sweat a lot. Well, it just is about a little after 6 now. If there's nothing more, or if there is more, we have to chat with you. We can all get back on the floor.
There's
No.
So, well, then there you are. And so you're very welcome. And tomorrow it's personal material. Tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to take the elements that we've worked on today and we're actually going to apply it to other kind of actions that are not exercises, what we call personal material, like making a key or standing up and sitting down. And we'll try to apply these. I'm sorry? We'll come up with some material. We'll give you material.
Oh, okay, 'cause I had something to work on.
Oh, well, maybe, bring that along. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. See you in the bar.